It's time to go over every single transaction made so far during this year's offseason. Starting it off with the Atlanta Hawks, who added Kristaps Porzingis, Luke Kennard, Nickeil Alexander-Walker, with Clint Capella, Larry Nance Jr., Terrence Mann, George Niang, and reportedly Karis LeVert all being off the team. The Hawks have probably had one of the better off seasons so far. With East now looking pretty wide open, this is the perfect time for them to finally make some kind of push and see if Trae can actually be a player that can lead a team to a deep playoff run. The Boston Celtics added George Niang, Luke Garza, Josh Minto, Anthony Simons, while getting rid of Drew Holiday, Luke Kornet, and Kristaps Porzingis. The blow-up of the Boston Celtics is something that many people around the league were expecting to happen with the new brutal rules around the CBA. We actually recently did a video on this channel outlining all of these specific reasons why the Celtics had to blow it up, even pointing out that their best options to shed salary space would be through both Drew Holiday and KP. And they were given a gift of a lifetime as they somehow were able to get rid of both. There have also been additional rumors that Jaylen Brown could possibly be on the market as well, but that offer would need to be elite. The Brooklyn Nets re-signed Day'Ron Sharpe, Zaire Williams, while adding Terrence Mann and Michael Porter Jr. Cam Johnson, D'Lo, and Trendon Watford all left the team. Really, the only thing going for the Brooklyn Nets is their age, as they are the youngest roster currently in the NBA. The Charlotte Hornets re-signed Tre Mann while adding Pat Connaughton, Spencer Dinwiddie, Mason Plumlee, and Colin Sexton, while getting rid of Micic, Nurkic, Okogie, and Mark Williams. One of the largest issues for the past few years with the Hornets is really their lack of a winning culture, a fact that is amplified when you realize that this year's Summer League Championship is the first time the Hornets have really won anything. No actual championships, conference championships, division titles, or even Summer League titles. So seeing the addition of a player like Colin Sexton to this roster should reap benefits both on and off the court. However, this team is missing a true center, or really anyone who can actually rebound, so that's a hurdle they're gonna have to get over. The Bulls re-signed Tre Jones, added Isaac Okoro, and got rid of Lonzo Ball. With moves like this, it's gonna be a little sad watching the Bulls be left behind in their annual play-in matchup against the Hawks. The Cavs re-signed Sam Merrill, added Lonzo Ball and Larry Nance Jr., and got rid of Ty Jerome and Isaac Okoro. As for the Cavs, they're not letting their foot off the gas at all, still finding ways to try and improve their roster. It should also be noted that it appears that the Cavs might not be done, as it's been long speculated that they've been shopping both Jarrett Allen and Darius Garland around the league waiting for the right offer. And the addition of another guard in Lonzo Ball could support those speculations. The Dallas Mavericks re-signed Dante Exum and Kyrie Irving while adding D'Lo and getting rid of Spencer Dinwiddie. But really the biggest Mavs off-season story comes from them drafting Cooper Flagg. Although I gotta say I'm sure AD's not overly thrilled about having D'Lo as a teammate again. The Denver Nuggets added Bruce Brown, Cam Johnson, Tim Hardaway Jr., Jonas Valanciunas, while getting rid of Michael Porter Jr. and Dario Saric. I can't express how much I like the Nuggets off-season moves. I've always maintained that their biggest mistake was not retaining Bruce Brown after their championship win. He's the type of player that every championship needs, and now I think the Nuggets have finally realized that after their attempts to save a buck by trying to adapt either Christian Brown or Peyton Watson into Bruce's role fell flat on its face. Also, swapping out MPJ for Cam Thompson essentially should be a blessing. There's nothing particularly wrong with Michael Porter Jr., but he's a little bit too unreliable for a team with championship aspirations. And obviously, Jokic finally being able to take a rest now that he has a backup cannot be overstated. With a lot of the attention being focused around the Thunder running it back, don't forget about the only other team aside from the Pacers who were able to take them to 7 games. And now they're even more loaded up. The Pistons re-signed Paul Reed, added Karis LeVert and Duncan Robinson, while getting rid of Fontecchio, Hardaway Jr., Schroeder, and Lindy Waters III. This honestly kind of feels like a sideways move for the Pistons. Cade's game is best complemented when you surround him with shooters, so that should be something that the Pistons always focus on. And here you kind of improve, but that improvement only comes from 2 players where you had at least 3 players that could go out and get you a 3-point shot before. And with Malik Beasley now most likely going to be off the team for next season, that gap is going to need to be filled big time. But maybe Maybe with the current landscape in the East, what they've done might be enough, although I would ideally like to see them try and flip Karras at the deadline for someone who fits their team a little better. The Golden State Warriors just got rid of Kevon Looney. The Warriors are kind of in limbo right now. Fans want to see a big move from the franchise, but before any moves can really be made, they need to figure out Kuminga's future. So until we see how that ends up, I wouldn't expect much from this franchise. The Houston Rockets re-signed Steven Adams, Aaron Holiday, Jeff Green, Jabari Smith, Jayshawn Tate, Fred VanVleet, while adding Clint Capella, Kevin Durant, Dorian Finney-Smith, Josh Okogie, and getting rid of Dylan Brooks, Jalen Green, Jock Landale, and Cam Whitmore. The Rockets are one of the bigger stories out of this year's free agency, most notably with the addition of Kevin Durant. On top of all these additions, this is coming off a season where the Rockets kind of exceeded expectations, and now are expected to carry that forward as they are currently tied for the second best odds to win next year's championship. This team's biggest downfall, though, probably would be their age and the pretty noticeable gap between players like Jabari Smith, Alperen Sengun, from KD, Jeff Green, and even kind of Steven Adams, who's only 32 but breaking down more like a 35-year-old. The Pacers re-signed Isaiah Jackson, James Wiseman, while adding Jay Huff and getting rid of Miles Turner. Presumably, without Halliburton for the year, there wasn't a huge reason for the Pacers to go all in again. But in the same breath, they've also been pretty good to avoid the first and second aprons, so their need to blow it up wasn't as required as the Celtics in terms of the CBA. The Clippers re-signed Nicholas Batum, James Harden, while adding Bradley Beal, John Collins, Brook Lopez, Chris Paul, and getting rid of Norman Powell and Drew Eubanks. If you were to go back to 2017 and say Chris Paul, Kawhi Leonard, James Harden, Bradley Beal, and Ben Simmons would all be on the same team someday, then most people would probably assume that Ben Simmons renounced his Australian status and joined Team USA. But unfortunately, it's 2025, so this team's a certified unction with Ben Simmons in attendance, asking someone 20 feet away to throw away his trash despite standing directly beside the garbage can. The Lakers re-signed Jackson Hayes while adding DeAndre Ayton, Jake LaVera, Marcus Smart, and getting rid of Jordan Goodwin, Trey Johnson III, Shake Milton, and Dorian Finney-Smith. The Lakers are kind of in a transitional state as they look to pivot from a more LeBron-focused offense to one that is formed around Luka. And the main thing for that is making sure you have a serviceable big, which is where DeAndre Ayton should come into play. However, Ayton has never really found that same impact that he was able to capture during the 2021 Suns playoff run. But maybe with Luka guiding the offense, it will give Ayton enough of a momentum boost to carry that back to the defensive end. The Grizzlies re-signed Santi Aldama, Jaren Jackson Jr., and Cam Spencer, while also adding KCP, Ty Jerome, and Jock Landale, and getting rid of Cole Anthony, Desmond Bane, Luke Kennard, and Jay Huff. It feels like this could potentially be a transitional season for the Grizzlies, as they were able to load up pretty decently on draft picks from the Bane trade, but also added championship-level pieces like KCP. The Heat added Simone Fontecchio, Davion Mitchell, Norman Powell, while getting rid of Kyle Anderson, Kevin Love, and Duncan Robinson. The Heat have done pretty well this offseason. Adding Norman Powell does feel like a pretty significant piece. Davion Mitchell is also pretty underrated for what he brings to the floor, but ultimately it does feel like Pat Riley's stubbornness is interfering with the franchise ever receiving anything that furthers the franchise's potential. It seems like every single year, the Miami Heat are at the very top of every top free agent's destination lists, but ultimately, they never land a single one of them. And when you see the insane asks that Pat Riley has for his players, it starts to become clear why these deals never end up materializing. Given the presence that he currently has over the organization, it might be tough to get him out, but it might be time for Heat fans to accept that Pat's kinda washed. The Bucks re-signed Chris Livingston, Kevin Porter Jr., Bobby Portis, Taurean Prince, Ryan Rollins, Jericho Sims, Gary Trent Jr., while adding Cole Anthony, Miles Turner, and Gary Harris, and getting rid of Pat Connaughton, Micic, Damian Lillard, and Brook Lopez. Whatever positive move the Bucks made this offseason, it kind of feels overshadowed by the terrible decision of stretching Dame's $112 million contract. I get that it was necessary to bring in Miles Turner, but truthfully, are the ramifications worth whatever Miles brings to this team? And that's no knock on Miles Turner, it's just $112 million is a lot of money. The Timberwolves re-signed Joe Ingles, Julius Randle, Naz Reid, while getting rid of Nickeil Alexander-Walker, Luke Garza, and Josh Minot. For the most part, the Timberwolves are remaining the same, the old if it ain't broke, don't fix it method. However, I do feel like the departure of Nickeil Alexander-Walker will be noticeable in a way that some fans might not expect. The Pelicans re-signed Herb Jones, added Sadiq Bey, Kevon Looney, and Jordan Poole. They got rid of Bruce Brown, CJ McCollum, and Kelly Olynyk. And all I gotta say for this is Zion Williamson and Jordan Poole hoops. Well, good luck, Pelicans fans. The Knicks added Clarkson and Yabusele. Knicks fans seem pretty excited about getting Clarkson. Ideally, he'd be able to fill some of the roles DiVincenzo had while he was in New York. The OKC Thunder re-signed SGA, Chet, AJ Miller, and both the Jalen Williams. And they got rid of Dylan Jones. The biggest story so far with the Thunder is all of the massive contract extensions that they've been given out after the championship win. And as of right now, all of these extensions has kept them as the current favorites to run it back and win again next year. However, with all of these massive contracts, the only thing that is going against this team's future, again, is the CBA. Something we mentioned would happen on this channel almost 2 years ago, specifically using the OKC Thunder as an example of a team that would eventually get punished the hardest by the CBA, despite the Thunder being a team that did things that this CBA supposedly encourages, building through the draft, and not just being a bigger market that spends the most to bring in stars. The Orlando Magic re-signed Paolo Banchero and Mo Wagner while adding Desmond Bane and Tyus Jones and getting rid of Cole Anthony, KCP, and Gary Harris. The Magic are expanding on some of the successes they found in the last few years by going out and grabbing Desmond Bane, which really should be the perfect pairing beside Paolo, finally giving him a few more options to help stretch the floor. The departures of Cole Anthony and KCP might be a little harmful, but as far as KCP, the Magic still ranked amongst some of the top defensive teams last year in the games that he missed, so they really should be alright without him. Tyus Jones also might be a slight upgrade over Cole Anthony too, as the addition of Desmond Bane does lessen the need for offense, so bringing in a solid fundamental point guard like Tyus Jones that's going to help initiate the offense does just kind of make sense. The 76ers re-signed Justin Edwards, Eric Gordon, Kyle Lowry while adding Trendon Watford and getting rid of Yabusele. You know, I'm not 100% sure, but I don't think the addition of Trendon Watford and re-signing a couple of dudes who are over the age of 35 is exactly the moves that are needed to solve the multiple issues the Sixers have that might honestly just need a deeper dive than what's going on in this video. As for the Phoenix Suns, they re-signed Devin Booker, Colin Gillespie, while adding Dylan Brooks, Jalen Green, Nigel Hayes-Davis, and Mark Williams, and getting rid of Bradley Beal, Kevin Durant, Tyus Jones, Cody Martin, Vicic, and Mason Plumlee. While getting rid of Bradley Beal, Kevin Durant, Tyus Jones, Cody Martin, Micic, and Plumlee. And yes, if you're paying attention, this is the third time that a team has moved Micic in one single offseason. The Suns are obviously one of the bigger stories this offseason, between the departures of both Beal and KD, as well as Devin Booker becoming the second highest paid player per season behind SGA, all for his efforts of helping the Suns win 36 games. Their best hope is to get a quick turnaround rebuild, but I doubt that will happen with how poorly the team has been run since Matt Ishbia purchased the franchise. I'm sure at this point some Suns fans are starting to realize that maybe there is no such thing as an ethical billionaire. The Portland Trail Blazers added Drew Holiday, Damian Lillard, Blake Wesley while getting rid of Anthony Simons and DeAndre Ayton. The decision to buy out Ayton and essentially pay a guy $35 million to not play for you is honestly probably one of the better ways you could spend $35 million. Also, Dame running it back with with Portland is pretty awesome. However this upcoming season turns out, I'm sure the fans there will still enjoy it knowing that he's back in Portland. The Sacramento Kings re-signed Doug McDermott while adding Drew Eubanks, Dennis Schroeder, and Dario Saric, and they got rid of Jake LaVeria and Giannis Valanciunas. The Kings really haven't done anything since the Beam team, and these moves aren't changing that reality. The San Antonio Spurs re-signed Jordan McLaughlin while adding Luke Cornett, Kelly Olynyk, and Lindy Waters III, while getting rid of Malachi Branham, Mamu, Chris Paul, and Blake Wesley. The Spurs' biggest move this offseason again comes from the draft, as they were able to pick up Dylan Harper. And also, as a side note, with all of the conspiracy theories around the Mavs and their lucky sneak into getting the #1 pick, I do feel like a lot of people just let the Spurs get away with another one because they weren't that bad last year. I mean, if they were in the East, they're the 11th seed, and only a couple wins shy of actually sneaking into the play-ins. The Toronto Raptors re-signed Jakob Poeltl, Garrett Temple, while adding Mamu. The Raptors have been severely underwhelming this offseason after a lot of reports said that Toronto was in the market for a big fish. Although, given that the player they were eyeing up was most likely Giannis, who never became available, it might not be all on them if Giannis just wanted to finish out his current contract with the Bucks. The Utah Jazz added Kyle Anderson, Kevin Love, and Yusuf Nurkic while getting rid of John Collins, Colin Sexton, and Jordan Clarkson. The Jazz still seem to just be happily getting worse with no apparent direction as they collect expiring contracts and flippable assets. The Washington Wizards re-signed Marvin Bagley while adding Malachi Branham, CJ McCollum, Dylan Jones, Blake Wesley, Cam Whitmore, and Kelly Olynyk. They then got rid of Kelly Olynyk, Anthony Gill, Rashawn Holmes, Jordan Poole, and Marcus Smart. The Wizards are definitely making moves finally. Whether or not it's going to work out is a giant question mark. Theoretically, I like some of the possibilities with this overall roster. They're young, but they also have some vet presence. Cam Whitmore could actually turn into something if given room to develop. It's hard to call, but I could just be overthinking it, and really re-signing Marvin Bagley will be the thing that is ultimately emblematic for their season. And that is every single move from every single NBA franchise. If you enjoyed the video, feel free to give it a like, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff.